The full supermoon is uninhibited in the fiery, independent sign of Aries, and that's exactly how Aries energy likes to be, uninhibited. This is when our emotions are going to drive us to take what we want whenever and however we want it, especially when we've been too passive, too receptive, or taking too much care not to disrupt the status quo. This can also be an aggressive energy. It is in the sign of Aries and it is ruled by Mars. So we want to be careful not to plow our way through to achieve our goals without regard for others. There is a need for balance. This full supermoon will have us feeling things viscerally and intensely and taking quick impulsive action on what we feel. Supermoons are always tricky because they tend to bring out emotional crises, and this is especially true in the cardinal signs, and Aries, of course, is a cardinal sign. This combination could be a recipe for disaster if we're allowing our overinflated, in-the-moment feelings to take us for a ride. This is one of those times when it's crucial to pause and reflect on the situation logically and then respond rather than react to the situations that are coming up as they unfold. In this forecast, I'm going to be covering the astrology for the next 2 weeks during the entire waning phase of the lunar cycle from September 29th all the way through to October 13th, so all the way up until the annular solar eclipse in the sign of Libra, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. But before we get into that, in case you're new to my channel or you need a refresher, my name is Heather Elin with astrologywithheather.com. I'm a professional astrologer and I teach astrology. I release new astrology forecasts and tutorials here on my channel every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update, and let me know how you're doing down in the comment section below as we come into this really powerful supermoon energy. Because I want to make sure that you can make the best use of the forecast that I provide for you for free here on YouTube, I want to remind you that I always begin with a 10 to 15 minute general overview of the energy for the next 2 weeks. Please don't skip this because in this part of the video, I provide an important context for what we're going to be covering in the forecast for all 12 signs, and so you won't be lost when we get to your sign. Speaking of which, when we do get into the forecast for all 12 signs, make sure you listen to your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign to get a more holistic overview for the energy for the next 2 weeks ahead. Your rising sign is going to be the most predominant energy. Your sun sign will be secondary, and your moon sign is important to listen to as well, especially if you are a Cancer rising or if you're born at night, although this energy will be more internalized and subjective. Finally, at the end of each video, I give a 2 to 3 minute sneak preview of what to expect for our next forecast. And this one will be for the first eclipse of our fall eclipse season in 2023. So be sure to stick around until the end if you're interested in that. And so kind of getting into the general forecast, and I'm going to share the chart for the full supermoon so you can see that and have a better picture of what we're looking at here. And so let's see here. First and foremost, this is a supermoon. Supermoons are closer to the Earth. Their gravitational pull on our planet is much more powerful and much more impactful. Supermoons are well known for bringing about emotional crises and for their internal influence that causes emotional volatility, especially in the sign of Aries, which is a very impulsive, very reactionary, very fiery, very volatile energy in general. When you pair that with a supermoon, this is going to bring over-the-top emotional expression. These moons are referred to as crisis full moons or crisis moons by astrologer Lynn Coiner, and for good reason. This tends to get a bit wild around the energy of the supermoon. The moon's influence on our consciousness and our behavior is extremely potent, and we tend to not only experience things more so as a crisis, even when it's not a crisis, but we also tend to actually have these physiological manifestations of things that are crisis. It's especially potent because the full moon is when things that have been kind of sitting below the surface, things that we've been initiating in the past, things that have been brewing for a long time, really bubble up to the surface. They really become exposed. They really come to this point of culmination. And sometimes that point of culmination, especially in the case of a supermoon, can feel like a crisis. It can feel like something is coming to a head and it's emotionally and physically overwhelming. And the cardinal signs also have the unique ability to bring about intense circumstances that require us to think on our toes and act or react quickly. So in addition to the supermoon energy, cardinal signs are also linked to experience of crises. And Aries, as I mentioned before, is a cardinal sign along with Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. And so in the sign of Aries, this can bring about extreme circumstances that require us to take action. We are in a fire cardinal sign. This is all about doing something in the moment. So it's not that we shouldn't take action. It's that we shouldn't take impulsive action without thinking. We shouldn't take action because we feel something really intensely in the moment without taking a breath, taking a pause and thinking it through. However, this energy of the supermoon might force us to have to take very quick, immediate action in order to get very quick results, because something might come up very fast that we have to deal with. And so it's going to require us to take some action. And this is only going to be exacerbated by the heightened emotional volatility triggered by the supermoon, which might cause us to take the wrong action or do something in the wrong way or to hurt somebody in the process, because it's a very Aries energy. Aries is all about charging forward, getting ahead. It's all about ambition and drive and willpower and optimism, which can be beautiful. If you are somebody who's been taking a back seat, being more passive, if there's something that you've been needing to initiate, but you've been putting it off because you're afraid of stepping on somebody's toes or hurting someone's feelings, or you're just afraid of, failing at something, now's the time when this supermoon might push you to do the thing that you need to do. And that can be really great for people that are a little bit more laid back and receptive, for people that tend to be a little bit more passive when they should be taking action. But this is an impulsive energy. And so for those that are on the other side of the spectrum, especially those who have a lot of cardinal energy, so again, Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, or those especially who have a lot of Aries energy or a strong Mars placement, you're going to be feeling extra driven, extra ambitious, extra optimistic, and extra excitable around this lunar culmination. And that's okay. However, it might cause you to take a big step too far. It might cause you to react to something when you should have taken time to respond and reflect. It could cause you to plow forward and hurt somebody in the process. And so just because something feels exciting in the moment, just because your optimism and ambition are really elevated at the time of this supermoon, doesn't mean that you get to just plow and ram everyone out of the way, Aries being the ram. It means that, you need to be extra cautious and take extra care to think about how what you're doing impacts other people before you charge ahead. This is also an excellent energy, again, for those who are feeling lackluster or unmotivated. So if you've been lacking in energy, if you've been lacking in motivation, if you've been feeling really tired, really burnt out, like you don't really, have the willpower to move forward with something, this is going to amp things up for you, and it's going to give you a burst of energy that you can utilize and harness in order to move forward with your plans or start something that you need to start, or it could bring the culmination of something that you finally get to take action on. But if you're already prone, again, to pushing too hard, doing too much, being way too active all of the time, this is going to cause people to push themselves to the brink of burnout, not just on a physical level, but on a psychological level and on an emotional level as well. This is in a very emotionally charged supermoon energy, and it's going to cause us to be feeling all of the emotions all at once really intensely. And this is a really good recipe for emotional burnout, again, especially for those of you who have a lot of cardinal energy. And so let's see what else we have here. Also, I should mention that our inhibitions are lowered or sometimes non-existent around the time of the supermoon, especially because it's a supermoon in Aries, so we're not inhibited. As I mentioned at the start of this video, this is a very uninhibited energy. You can see in the chart that this full moon is not really being aspected by any of the planets. It's just kind of doing its own thing out in the open, big and bold. And that's great. Aries likes that because you can just do what you want and get what you want and move forward with what you want. You don't have to worry about all these other variables coming into play. And so, that can be good, but just know that with your inhibitions lowered, you might end up putting your foot in your mouth. You might do something that later you could regret. And so again, this is one of those full moons when we're not going to be mindful when we should. Also expect people to be very direct during the time of this Aries supermoon. You're going to be feeling something and then you're going to be saying it or acting on it. And so people are going to be saying exactly how they feel. They're going to be expressing their emotions very abruptly in a way that can be very jarring, and you might find yourself doing the same. So people are going to be saying exactly how they feel and doing things potentially that they always have wanted to do, but have felt afraid to do. And that can be jarring for everyone who's in their wake. And so again, just be aware, do your own thing in your own way. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing, even if it's rattling you, because it's just the supermoon energy. It's going to pass. And everybody at this moment needs to be able to, at the very least, stay in their own lane and get done what needs to be done, or deal with the crisis that's coming up as it's coming up, without having all these other people kind of saying, well, what about this? What about that? Do it this way. Like telling somebody to do something in a certain way, being bossy at this supermoon, which some people are going to be, that's going to be a recipe for getting into arguments, disputes, disagreements, fights. And because it's such a big energy and it's so powerful, and it's going to be really manifesting around the supermoon, but it's going to really continue to take hold over the next couple of weeks, or you're going to have to be kind of winding down for it over the next couple of weeks during that waning phase. Whatever you do at this time, it's going to have repercussions that are at least somewhat long lasting. And so just kind of be aware of that. So we have this impulsive energy. So pair this impulsive energy with the fact that Venus in Leo will be squaring Uranus. Uranus is shock and awe and doing things that are really crazy and rebellious. It's things that come up very abruptly, beginnings and endings that are very abrupt. It's a disruptive energy, and Venus is relationships. This is happening on the same day as the supermoon. We're going to have a recipe for some very interesting changes and very interesting revelations. People are going to want to be independent. Liberation, independence, sovereignty, excitement, action, motivation. These are all key words of this time. And this could bring about abrupt endings or abrupt beginnings in relationships. I say more so endings because we've had Venus going back and forth, squaring Uranus because of the Venus retrograde cycle. And this is that last pass. It's squaring it exact. And, if something started in a relationship during the Venus retrograde, even if it wasn't all the way, it could end right now, or it could change in some way. So if you initiated a relationship, or you changed something about a relationship, or you had some sort of contract or agreement that came up during the Venus retrograde, it could change very abruptly around the time of this full supermoon. Not necessarily because of the supermoon, although that doesn't necessarily help the situation, but because of this Venus-Uranus square, which is just very chaotic energy. Also, as we move on from this energy and move closer to the annular solar eclipse in Libra, which occurs on October 14th, we have a major eclipse trigger happening during this waning phase of the lunar cycle. And this is going to be happening between the 3rd and 9th of October. I'm giving you guys more specific dates now, if you've noticed, because in the comments, you guys always ask for that. I'm trying to remember. I'm doing better. But Mars will conjunct the North Node on October 4th, and it will square Pluto on October 8th. This is not only an initiation into eclipse season, but it's also a preview of what's to come during the eclipses, and it's an activation of the very difficult karmic energy that we've been dealing with the Pluto square to the nodes since the end of July. This is a huge activation. Things are going to come up very quickly. the sense I get from this energy, and just knowing what I know about astrology and past experiences with stuff like this, it's going to feel like as we get close to this supermoon and shortly thereafter and into the eclipse season, time is going to be racing. Time is going to be speeding up. It's going to feel like everything is happening very quickly, all at once. It's all unraveling. There's this crisis. There's this fire to put out. There's this new revelation. There's this new opportunity. There's this shiny thing over here. And it's just going to go by so fast. It's going to be a whirlwind. And so first off, take some time, schedule some time and space in your day-to-day life to just sit, breathe, and reflect, because you're not going to have time to do that if you don't. Second, make sure that you have wiggle room in your schedule for taking advantage of new opportunities, or for changing something if it comes up really abruptly, or for dealing with a crisis if you do have to put out a fire, because all of these things are likely to happen around this time. This is a huge, huge energy. And so yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it in the forecast for all 12 signs. But before we get into that, for those of you who are interested in learning more about your own chart, I have a free gift for you. So the astrological houses are a topic that's probably been distorted by more confusion, misinformation, and controversy than any other topic in astrology, which has made it difficult for astrologers and students to truly understand the meanings of the 12 houses. And it's made it even more difficult to piece the information together coherently, to create interpretations and give meaningful astrology readings. And I would like to change that, which is why I'm unlocking our entire module on the 12 astrological houses from the Cosmic Academy of Astrology for free for 10 days. This free module on the houses is all inclusive. There's so much there. We've actually redone it and revamped it to make it just make more sense and work more cohesively as a standalone lesson, because normally it's being taught in the context of the academy. And so we actually have had this available for quite some time, but we redid the offer during the Mercury retrograde. And so this free module of the houses also serves as a preview of the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. So you're going to have an opportunity to sneak a peek inside my most popular and comprehensive astrology course, which is great if you're somebody who's interested in learning astrology and diving deeper, because this is the place for astrologers just like you who are tired of sifting through piles of disconnected and disorganized information from YouTube and from books, only to be left feeling frustrated and confused when you go to piece it together to give a reading. In the Academy, we offer a structured step-by-step approach to learning astrology that logically layers the information. And the best part is you won't be doing it alone. In addition to over 120 hours of pre-recorded lessons covering everything you need to know to read natal charts and make complex predictions with confidence, the Academy includes live study group sessions, Q&A calls, an active and engaging student community where you can ask questions, get answers from expert astrologers, including me, and connect with like-minded astrology lovers just like you to learn, practice, and grow together. And even if you aren't ready to join us in the Academy, you can still unlock free 10-day access to our entire module on the astrological houses and benefit from all of the information we've put together for you. That's free of charge. My gift to you, the link is down in the description below. All right, and so let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs. So for Aries and for Aries rising, this full moon is happening in your sign. You're going to be feeling really amped up, really supercharged, very emotional. Your sensitivities, your intuition, your emotions are going to be heightened to the point of excess. You're going to be expressing things that you never thought that you would express openly and out in the public eye, out to other people. This is an energy where it's going to be very hard for you to hide how you're feeling about things, because you're going to be wearing your emotions on your sleeve, especially if you're an Aries sun, moon, or rising anywhere around 6 degrees. So I would say anywhere from, 0 to 10 degrees, 11 degrees, you're going to be feeling this very powerfully and very intensely. This could bring about some sort of emotional or even physical crisis that you have to deal with very abruptly, very quickly in the moment, especially for Aries. And so you want to make sure that you're planning lightly for whatever comes up. And whatever comes up in the moment is helping you to clear the air and to make way for whatever transitions, whatever changes, whatever big, powerful energies are coming up during the eclipse season. With the annular solar eclipse happening in the sign of Libra on the opposite side of the spectrum, just in 2 weeks after this, this is your moment. This is your chance to actually move forward with what you want to do in the way that you want to do it. However, something is culminating that's going to cause you to have to deal with a crisis first, or deal with something that feels like a crisis emotionally and psychologically internally, even if it's not an actual crisis externally. Sorry, I'm moving around my monitor a little bit here. And so, yeah, this energy is very powerful. Take a breath, Aries. Schedule some time to just sit and reflect and breathe. You're going to be feeling very antsy. This is a recipe for burnout. If you do too much, if you go too hard, if you do things too fast, yes, there's something that needs to be dealt with in the moment. Yes, there's something that you're going to have to deal with very quickly, that you're going to have to kind of change course with really abruptly. There might be something that's an opportunity that comes your way that you need to take action on in the immediate moment. And that could feel like a crisis, even if it's a good thing, because it could be just a lot coming up for you all at once. But regardless of what it is, you're going to want to make space for that around the time of this full moon. And that's going to be the biggest thing. The other thing going on here, of course, is that there is an energy here of change that comes up again in a shocking, abrupt, disruptive way, especially when it comes to your finances, to your children, to your hobbies, interests, things that you love to do, or in a romantic way, or in a romantic setting, or in a romantic relationship. And so there's a lot rearranging right now. And so, just pace yourself. It's going to be very hard to predict what's coming up before it comes up in a specific way beyond the themes that I told you. Because it's going to be in a way that you don't expect it to happen. And so again, take it slow, schedule some time, be flexible, and you'll be perfectly fine. For Taurus and for Taurus rising, this full moon, this full supermoon in the sign of Aries is more about endings than new beginnings. This is where something's coming to a culmination. It could be that there are emotions that you've been keeping hidden beneath the surface, that you've been keeping under wraps, that you need to let out, that you need to express. Your emotions are something that needs to be released, so that way, for once and for all, you can let it go. You can clear that karma. You can clear that emotional energy from your body, so you can heal, so you can move on. And this is especially important for you to clear the air and let go and release those emotions prior to the eclipse season, because this is also going to be happening on the Aries Libra axis. And I would venture to guess that if you allow these emotions, if you allow this surge of feeling to just stay hidden, if you try to suppress it instead of releasing it, that this could manifest in your physical body in some way. So you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of this. This is not an external new moon or full moon energy. This is not the time to go out and party. This is not the time to be doing things physically that you need to manifest. This is a time to spend time resting, spend time reflecting, spend time journaling about your intense emotions, but spend time in solitude. Take some time away from it all. It's also going to be a time where you might be going through some very abrupt changes, Taurus, especially if you're a Taurus sun, moon, or rising, anywhere from, let's say, 16 to 26 degrees, because you're going to be having, actually 17 to 27 degrees, because you're going to be having Venus in square with Uranus sitting on your ascendant sun or moon. There's been a change that's been going on in the area of you and the way that you express yourself, the way that you show up in the world. You're showing up in a very different way. You're becoming more rebellious, and you're becoming more who you actually are in this unique sense. But there's been a challenge here with who you're becoming and the changes you're making and how that's impacting your family relationships. And that's been ongoing throughout, before, during, and after the Venus retrograde. Now's a time where a relationship with a family member could change very abruptly once and for all. It could end, or it could change for the better, but it's still going to be a little jarring. It's going to take a little flexibility in order to get through it. And so again, take that time out, take that time away to reflect, and I think you should be fine. If there's something that you've been wanting to move forward with in terms of a change involving your living situation, now's the time where that might move forward as well. And so that could be a really positive thing. It's still going to be abrupt, and it's still going to be a little uncomfortable, but it's going to be positive. It's like, oh, I have to deal with this discomfort of moving really quickly, but look at this beautiful end result. For Gemini and for Gemini rising. For Gemini, this full moon is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, group associations, networks, and people that you surround yourself with by choice. And so this is a really powerful energy for putting yourself out there, going out and having a good time with your friends, sharing who you are in a way that's uninhibited with your friends. This could also be, where you're thrust into a leadership role in some sort of group or organization, or where you're front and center when it comes to your social scene, your social circle in some way. There could be some sort of crises that manifests more emotional than physical within your social circle, within your friend group, that you have to deal with really abruptly. It's important that you deal with this now, because this is going to clear the air and clear the way for the energy that's going to be trying to manifest some sort of change or transition during the eclipse season. It's a little bit of heaviness, a little bit of intensity, but it's not as bad for Geminis as it is for some of the other signs. There could be an abrupt change to a relationship with somebody in your community, or a sibling, an extended family member, a cousin, a neighbor, something along those lines, where it's been ongoing, where that relationship has been disrupted. And so this is the final change, the final kind of pass of this energy, where whatever it is that's been unsettled in those connections can be resolved once and for all. It could also be something involving a vehicle, and that could be settled finally once and for all, like purchasing a vehicle or fixing a vehicle or financing a vehicle. And that could be what's being settled for you as well on a more mundane level. For Cancer and for Cancer rising. So for Cancer, this full moon is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. And so this is an energy where you're going to be putting yourself really out there when it comes to your career. There could be something that comes up really abruptly in terms of an opportunity that's a culmination of a lot of hard work that you've been putting in, a lot of effort that you've seeded in the past, where it's finally manifesting, where you're finally getting recognized for all of your hard work. This could also be an emotional crisis that involves your career, or involves your public status or public reputation in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be work, you guys. I've seen this happen so many times, where you have these types of, even if you are somebody who, is working and has a really prominent career path, sometimes when these things happen, it's kind of like your private life becomes more public with the supermoon and with this full moon energy, where something that you were trying to keep hidden, or trying to keep, more to yourself or more within the family, is exposed, and then everyone knows about it. And that's, public in terms of, or in respect to you and how public you are of a figure, right? It could just be that in your immediate surroundings or in your immediate group, it becomes public, but something about what's going on behind the scenes becomes public. It could be that you have a public outburst of some kind, or there could be an emotional crisis that comes up involving your career that could cause some sort of disparagement or dispute. This could also just be a very ambitious energy, where you're finally moving forward with something that you need to move forward in order to fulfill your goals, your dreams, your ambitions when it comes to the impact you want to make on the world at large. And that could be really powerful and really beautiful. You could also get recognition from somebody in a position of power and authority, and that could be wonderful too. I should also mention, before I move on from that there could be some sort of change that's being finalized, or that comes up really abruptly, a disruptive or shocking energy involving your social circle, your friends, or involving your finances. It's something that's been ongoing that you already knew was coming, but it finally just really takes hold, and something about the situation changes in a way that you didn't expect during this final pass of the Venus-Uranus energy. For Leo and for Leo rising, this full moon is in a beautiful position for you, especially if you're a Leo sun, moon, or rising anywhere from 1 to 11 degrees, because this full moon is hitting you in a very beautiful trine. You're going to be feeling very excited, adventurous. You're going to be feeling very exploratory. This is a great time for you to get out there and do something new that you've never done before, something that you've always wanted to do that lights you up, that you feel really optimistic about, that changes your perspective on your reality. This is a great time to do some sort of extreme adventure. And so I love this. It could be that there's already an adventure that's culminating for you in your life, or that you're already traveling in some way. If that's the case, do it now and not like a couple weeks from now. The eclipse season is going to be hitting you weird there. But this energy is great. The other thing that's going on here is that Venus is coming into its final square with Uranus, which has been going on in your 1st and in your 10th house. There's something that's been going on that's been unsettled in the area of career and public reputation, and also coming from you personally, or it could be even involving your personal relationships. There's like a disruption to your persona, your image, the way people view you, the way that you feel, and the way that you're expressing yourself. And that's causing changes when it comes to your work and your career and your public reputation, your public status. This is going to be the final pass where one more thing about that situation needs to change in order for you to get that job, to change that career path, to get that recognition that you deserve, to align yourself more fully with who you want to be out in the world in a very unique and unusual and maybe rebellious way. And so this is that last pass. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to bring benefits as a result. For Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for Virgo, this full moon energy is happening in your 8th house, which is the house of death, rebirth. It's the house of psychological intensity. And so this could really bring up an emotional crisis for Virgo in particular, where a deeply rooted trauma, a deeply rooted fear, an experience from your past could resurface, not physically, not externally, but probably more so emotionally, like something reminds you of it, or you're just starting to have like dreams, or you're just remembering about it, or it's just coming up for you on that psychological and emotional level in order for you to finally heal through that energy. So that fear, that trauma, that anxiety, that issue from your past is no longer controlling your behavior in the present. This is also where if you have addictions, if you have repetitive, compulsive habits and behaviors that are not good for you, those are going to come up and you're going to have to deal with them. It's going to become blatantly obvious that this is the time for you to quit smoking, to quit doing that thing, to stop, habitually whatever it is that you're doing that's bad for you. This is also a time where there could be a culmination of an energy involving joint finances. So you could get approved for a loan. And that could bring about its own form of like emotional crisis, or it could just be really exciting where it's like over the top, excited emotions, over the top optimism about it. This could bring the culmination of something manifesting with your partner's resources, where maybe your partner brings in more money, or a debt goes to collections. That could be part of it too. It could be on either end of the spectrum there. And so something is culminating when it comes to other people's money, or, debt, taxes, inheritance. You could get an insurance payout, something of that nature as well. For Virgos, the energy of the Uranus-Venus square is actually not too shabby for you. You've been changing your mindset, your beliefs around something more so than anything else. And so that's really what's going to be finalized around the time of this supermoon. For Libra and for Libra rising, this full supermoon is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. Something really big and powerful might be happening for you in relationships around the time of this full moon. It could be that there's an emotion that you've been hiding. There's something that you've been hiding emotionally from your partner or from somebody significant to you that comes out and that is expressed and it can't be ignored, or your partner is expressing really intense, extreme emotions, and all of a sudden you're like, what the heck is this? And you have to deal with it. You have to address it in some way. This could also just be the culmination of something really beautiful and really powerful that's coming to fruition for you in partnership. But even though it's positive, it could feel a little bit like a crisis because it's like all happening all at once. And it's like, because this is an energy of like everything happening all at once. Either way, I like this energy. It's going to be a time for you to kind of come back into balance, to come into partnership, to initiate or do something in partnership with somebody else And it's your final chance to kind of get things resolved with your partner emotionally and psychologically, if you are in partnership, prior to the massive changes and transitions that are going to be happening for you during the eclipse season. So this is kind of a preparation for that. There could be changes coming up for you around the time of this supermoon involving your relationships with your friends, where there's been this ongoing unsettled, disruptive energy, especially involving like power and control issues, power struggles in your friendships and in your group connections, where it finally, like, so the last pivot, the last change is coming, and it gets resolved once and for all. For Scorpio and for Scorpio rising. So for Scorpio, this full moon is happening in your 6th house, which is the house of health, work, and daily habits and routines. It's also the house of pets. And so there's something coming up here that could, first off, it could feel emotionally, psychologically, or even physically like some sort of healing crisis. That could be part of this energy for you. And when it comes up, it's something that you're going to have to deal with very quickly, but also mindfully. Don't rush through it. Don't just do something because you need to put a Band-Aid on it. Think about how your actions are going to impact you, not just today, but for, the next couple of weeks ahead, if not longer. There could be something that comes up in your work, in your day-to-day work habits and routines that, again, feels like a crisis, where it's like, everything is happening all at once, and you feel panicked. You feel like you have too much work to do. Everything feels a little chaotic. If that's the case, again, that's okay, but it is going to be something that you're going to have to address, and also think about how it's going to impact your future, not just put a Band-Aid on it. This is a really powerful time where some sort of healing could come to fruition. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be a healing crisis. This is where something is illuminated when it comes to your health or your daily routines and habits around your health, where it's like glaringly obvious that you need to change this and change it now. And that can be wonderful and very powerful for you. And that's going to set the stage for you to have a much healthier, much more balanced eclipse season, because the eclipses are going to be hitting you on that Aries Libra axis. Finally, there's something that you've been working on going back and forth with changing when it comes to your career and your public status with that Venus retrograde. And you've been kind of going back and forth. It's been disruptive. And disruptive things have been coming up that have been causing you to pivot and alter your plans on and off this entire time for like a couple of months now. Now is the time where the changes you want to make, the changes you know you need to make, finally come to fruition. However, there's going to be one last thing that's unexpected that's going to come probably through another person or through another relationship. That's been a theme for you, actually, during the Venus retrograde, that you're going to have to address in order to resolve everything, in order to make the changes that you truly want to make for yourself when it comes to the impact you make on the world, even if you're not somebody who's working. Then for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. So for Sagittarius, this energy is happening in your 5th house. And so that's fun. Sagittarius, this is time for you to party, to go out there and do something you love to do, to enjoy yourself in some way. This is a much better full moon energy. There's not as much of a crisis as it could be that you're just going to be overdoing it, overindulging, being overly excited about something where it's like, I want to do all of this right now. And so, that could be bad if you're leaning too far toward excess. If you're somebody who's into like gambling or something like that, that's a 5th house topic. But for the most part, I actually really like this energy. So you're going to be feeling really passionate about something. There's something that you love to do that you're going to get to do. There could be something that culminates involving your children, if you have any. That's where there could be a little bit of an emotional crisis. It's maybe that your children are becoming more independent, or they're doing something out in the world and you're kind of freaking out about it. I wouldn't say that it's worth freaking out about necessarily, because of the way this is hitting your chart, especially if you're a Sagittarius sun, moon, or rising, anywhere from 1 to 11 degrees. This is going to be impacting you really positively. This could also be a really romantic full moon for you, a very sexually charged full moon for you. And so take advantage of that passion if that's something that's applicable to you. And also, there's one last pivot that you need to make when it comes to your education or your educational plan, or some sort of travel plans that have been ongoing, you've been back and forth with and having to make adjustments with, that, it'll come up rather abruptly at the time of this supermoon, but once you change it, and it's going to have to probably do with a daily habit, a daily routine, your work, or something with your health, in order to make this travel opportunity a reality for you. But once you do it, it's going to be very positive and really powerful moving forward. You'll finally get to make those changes, and you'll finally get to maybe go on that trip if that's applicable to you. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this full moon is happening in your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, property, and real estate. This is a culmination of something that you've been wanting to move forward with or change about your family dynamic, your home, your living situation. And so that can be a beautiful, beautiful thing, but you're going to have to act quickly, but also mindfully. This could also be bringing up a lot of powerful emotions. It could be illuminating something about a family member, about your parents, about a family dynamic that could feel like an emotional crisis that you have to deal with in the moment. It's kind of like everyone's airing their dirty laundry and you're like, oh gosh, what is this? How do I deal with this in a tactful way? And so that could be part of this too. This could be a very healing energy on a family or ancestral level, or healing through something to do with your roots. And this could also be, the culmination of something that you've been wanting to do with a home. So it could be that you're moving, or that you're renovating, or that something's coming through for you in your home or your living situation. This is the time to really take hold of that energy and act quickly before the eclipse season, because that's going to start disrupting things for you in that area. The other thing that's going on is with Venus squaring Uranus, there's changes that you've been wanting to make involving joint finances, especially. So debt, taxes, inheritance, maybe your partner's resources have been all over the place. There's been a lot of shocking, unexpected changes there. Now's the time where a lot of that's going to start to resolve for you. But there's one last pivot. There's one last change you need to make in order to bring things back into balance financially. And then for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this full moon energy is happening in your 3rd house, which is the house of community. There could be a crisis going on in your community, or something that feels like a crisis. You could have an argument or dispute with a neighbor, or an opportunity could come up for you in your community or in your immediate environment. This could also be something being illuminated for you involving your siblings, extended family members, that you didn't realize. And it's an emotionally charged situation. It's not necessarily bad, but because it's coming up in this way at this moment with this supermoon energy, it could feel much like a bigger deal than it actually is. So just make sure you allow yourself some time to sit, reflect, don't get overwhelmed by that. This could also be the culmination of a short distance travel plan or opportunity, the culmination of something involving education or some sort of certification or skill that you're wanting to develop, where all of a sudden everything's coming up all at once, all your exams are coming up or something like that, and it feels like a lot all at once, and mentally you could get a little burnt out by that. But overall, this is a good thing, and it's a good thing to get it out of the way now if you can, because the eclipse energy is going to rattle some things there. The other thing you have going on is that Uranus is squaring Venus for the final time. There's something that's been going on here, like a disruption in a dynamic of an important relationship, or maybe a new relationship came up for you during the Venus retrograde. If that's the case, it could be the end of that relationship. It could be a major change in that relationship, or if an old relationship came back into the mix during the Venus retrograde, this could be where it changes again, or it's ended once and for all. If you're currently partnered, it doesn't mean your relationship is going to end, especially if you didn't get together during this past Venus retrograde. But it could be that there's been something that you've been kind of figuring out together or making changes about together involving not just your relationship, but your home or your living situation in some way, where it's been all over the place and you've been having all these unexpected circumstances that have been coming up and causing you to have to go back and forth with things. Now's a time where you're going to have to make one last final change, but it's going to be resolved finally once and for all. And so that's going to be really positive. But you will have to deal with a little bit of discomfort in the moment at the time of the supermoon in order to get there. Finally, for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this supermoon is happening in your 2nd house, which is the house of money. This could be the culmination of some money coming in for you, something like a big payout in some way. It could also be the culmination of some sort of crisis, something that you haven't been looking at when it comes to your finances, that all of a sudden it's illuminated, it's in your face, and you can no longer ignore it. And that feels like a crisis. It feels like it's coming up all at once, and it's like, oh crap, I have to deal with this now. now. That could be part of this energy too. But if you do have to act quickly on something, maybe a big purchase, maybe paying off a debt, maybe, a new financial opportunity coming up for you, and it feels like a lot all at once, that's okay. Really, this is you clearing the air and getting things going prior to the eclipse energy, because that eclipse energy is going to really rattle things for you, and you're going to want to take care of it before that happens. There's also the Venus-Uranus energy. This is happening in your 6th and in your 3rd house. There's been something you've been going back and forth with, trying to change or perfect or navigate. Like you've been rebalancing something when it comes to your health, when it comes to your work, when it comes to work-related projects or relationships, or when it comes to your daily routines. Over the past several weeks, couple months, with Venus going back and forth in retrograde, hitting that Uranus energy in your 3rd house, there could have also been really disruptive, weird communication coming through your work or your coworkers or your employees that it's coming back up. So it's kind of like you have to deal with it once and for all. Something new information or a new level or a new person is coming into the mix. And that's the one final thing that you're going to have to integrate and correct and, and deal with. The final pivot that you need to make, but it's going to finally resolve, and you're going to finally come back into balance when it comes to your work. And so that is my forecast for all 12 signs. And so before we sign off on this video, I wanted to give you a short preview of the energy of the annular solar eclipse in Libra, which is occurring on October 14th. We're going to be touching on this in a full video for all 12 signs in 2 weeks. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so you don't miss that. But this annular solar eclipse is going to bring up karmic energies that force us to face the facts when it comes to an imbalance in our lives, requiring a major surrender and a major reset. There's something very toxic and intense that we've been avoiding dealing with for several months now, and that we've been holding on to maybe for many years even. It doesn't necessarily just have to be over the past couple of months. And it's been causing disharmony and throwing us out of our natural equilibrium. While this eclipse energy will expose exactly what this is, it's likely that we already have at least some idea of what we'll be dealing with due to the ongoing Pluto square to the lunar nodes, which has been massively impacting us since the middle to end of July, and it's going to be hugely activated at the time of this eclipse. And just before it, when Mars actually hits the Pluto nodal square, as I mentioned at the start of this video, during that 1st and 2nd week of October. This isn't going to be, with this annular solar eclipse, a phoenix rising from the ashes energy just yet. Right now, the energy is just kind of ashes. This is the purge before the rebuilding. And it sounds intense because it's an intense energy. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's going to be a crazy eclipse season. And this first one is especially powerful and especially impactful. But once we pass through this karmic detox, we will be reborn. We'll feel lighter, more powerful, more balanced, more empowered, more independent, and much more uninhibited, which is what this current supermoon in Aries is trying to show us how to be. It's giving us a taste of that uninhibited energy. So, yeah, we'll talk about this a lot more in 2 weeks. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video. Comment below and let me know how things are going for you during this full supermoon in Aries. Share this with your friends if you feel like they could benefit from the information that I'm sharing with you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.